Hey everybody, custom mic again. Being silly, just sitting here in the back 40, so to say. After finishing some of the stuff we did cooling wise on that 1935 Pontiac 6-cylinder engine for one of my friends. And I wanted to just talk a little bit. I had a lot of questions in regards to how I did and why I did and a lot of those things. And, you know, it just started on the wrong end, so to say. And we ended up missing a distribution tube that we talked about yesterday. Distribution tube is just really what it is, a water distribution tube. It's a tube that they stuck inside that engine. So when the water comes out of the water pump, it flows in and squirts at the right direction in the right parts of the engine to create the coolant. And it's really, like many comments were made in yesterday's video, you know, just a messed up way of helping a bad design, and which is probably partially true, and which is why they did so many improvements in 36, 37, 38, 39, 40 and all that stuff. And well, I'll show you a little bit about some of those things I talk about, upgrades that they did over time. But many of it, you guys said that you should pull the freeze plugs and all that stuff, and we did the best we could with that evapor rust. And today we've run through her with the power washer, and we've gone through and blown through all the available orifices, so to say. The water pump where this pipe goes, and through up here where the thermostat goes, where all the sending holes, etc. But we didn't really feel like there was a reason to take out the new freeze plugs that the machine shop had put in, because we had reasonably good access to the surface area around the cylinders and the water jackets and all that stuff. So we elected to go this route. And actually today, my friends down at AutoZone let me use one of their borescopes, which is essentially just a long fiber optic cable with an LED screen and 4 lights and a movable camera that you can change direction on. And as we lifted this thing up, so we actually lifted it up this way so it hung this way, so that we could actually blow and pressure wash and scrape or whatever all the crud out from the inside, so gravity would just help it fall out or flush out as we were working it. And after we had it up and down a couple of times, scraping, grinding, running cables through. I mean, there's so many ways of doing this, but this is just one of them. It's just a cable you hang a picture with in a simple drill. You get the end a little bit cockeyed, and then it swivels around and on and makes a hell of a mess. And it scrapes some of the stuff out. You can also just take a welding rod, and you can bend some bends in it, and you can tweak the end and run that through it. Just be careful, don't run it too long, because then it fatigues at the end and breaks off. You don't want to add stuff to what's inside. We also, what I begun with was just buying a couple of extensions that you can do to extend a drill, and I put a drill part that I sharpen the blades on, and I actually used that to drive into the motor to catch this sucker and scrape it off the cylinder walls, because even if I had the freeze plugs off, I couldn't get to that, so I had to scrape the remaining piece, and probably about from here back, the tube was still in there, but it was rusted solid, and this part was all gone, laying in the bottom of the block right down in this area. And fortunately, I was able to get most of the stuff out, the big stuff, with just this scraper with sharpened ends on both sides and lightly tapping with a hammer back and forth. You know, a long screwdriver to go in and do stuff. The borescopes helps a lot. A magnet is invaluable to get all the little, you know, they are magnetic, so I just picked up some of the flakes. I don't know if it'll focus on that, but I just picked up some of the flakes off the ground that came out of the motor, and You know, so this helps a lot. And if you do it in conjunction with the bore scope, you can see where you're going. And the cool part about bore scope that we got to use from AutoZone was the camera. You could tell it electronically to turn and look in different directions. So if you came in with it slightly bent, you could actually look around the cylinders and see that the passages were closed. So we actually had pretty good access through the holes that we have in there. Another thing I did too was just some regular piping from doing water type stuff, and that's extended them together. You got some brushes with boltable extensions that we crushed down onto the actual end of it. I'm sorry if I'm showing. And then that was screwed together. Just be careful, don't run it the wrong way, because it'll unscrew itself unless you weld it together. But even so, this can unscrew itself out of this if you run the wrong direction too. And we started with a really big one. This was actually bigger than this when I started, and this has really coarse. And that did most of the work via an adapter that we ran through it. And then we ran through several different sizes of units. And just be careful again, if you run it the wrong direction, like this one right here, it unscrewed itself out of the little compressed pipe, and I had to fish that one back out about halfway inside the motor, and that was not as fun as I wanted it to be. But so those are just some things, you know. This one is an auto body tool. It was great to kind of knock off some of the bigger scrapes or flakes inside the engine. We also used a combination of water pressure and air pressure, and we just took a hose and kind of pointed off the end so you could get around a correlation, put the air hose on one side and stuck that in and snaked it in through the motor and blew the air around inside the water, so it would help flush some of the stuff out. So while it was both sitting straight down and hanging up, so you can still flush out in multiple different angles. So let me clip on the mic, which I flicked off over here, sorry about that, and I'll show you some other stuff. All right, so let's see here. So the only axis we had on this motor, actually let me explain this first here. This is actually a Crossley engine, and it's actually, let me sit down and get comfortable here. You can actually see the cylinders here. And you know, behind this plate, this is the water jackets, so to say. And it's inside here that I'm trying to clean. If you look at it here, you can see the cylinders right here. And they don't have water jackets in 35. Water begins up here, where it's the top of the cylinder where the explosions is, and up to the cylinder head. But inside here is where all the flakes is. And that's really what it looks like behind the outside of the casting. It looks like that on the inside. And you have two, on this engine, there's just, you have a casting instead, and then they have two freeze plugs for access, but those are so small we decided not to pull them, because we could get in through this little hole right here and get a good feel on it there. We could get in over where the sending unit is, and we could get in from top here and through the pump. And understanding what it looks like inside kind of helps us understand where we need to look. So when I talked earlier about getting a bore scope, we actually had a small hole right here, and we could actually stick the bore scope that has 4 light bulbs on the end and a movable camera in through that hole and get all the way back to here and turn around the corner and look both top and bottom, around the corner and look top and bottom at each one of these areas to see that these areas were clear of debris and flakes and rust or whatever else that may happen to be in there. And one thing to think about, if you leave a motor out with the hole open like this and you don't have a thermostat in it, there are small critters that like areas like this, nice, quiet, warm, and they will build nests in there too. Something to think about, Anyhow, so with the bore scope, looking at all of the accessible areas we had, after doing a thorough cleaning on this Pontiac block through all the available orifices and multiple cleaning, and John was real mess today, and the pile of debris that I showed yesterday, we actually doubled it today. with the rest of the mechanical cleaning. And we felt really good in the afternoon. Let me sit down there for a second. And we put the block back down, put the block off plates in place, put all the plugs in so that she's not leaking, and we filled it back up with the evaporust to give it one final piece. And you too can go and get the what do you call it, the bore scope at your local auto parts store. A lot of them, either they let you use it or rent it out depending on what kind of account you have with them. So, but I also want to talk about, especially on these older engines, this is the thermostat housing for this particular engine. It's very peculiar, and we haven't found a better one, so we've decided to clean this one up. And one of the things that I found on these engines, both 6-cylinder and 8 cylinders, is that the thermostat doesn't have a regular thermostat holding place. They actually have a little metal cup that goes in here that holds the thermostat up against here. It's been rusted off since probably the 50s. And if you stick a regular thermostat in here, and this is one of the things to watch out for. If you go in and put in 1935 Pontiac thermostat, they give you a picture of a regular thermostat that they put in the late model engine because they say it's going to fit. The unfortunate thing is, if you put one of those in here, it will just flip around and go sideways and not function properly unless it's actually retained in here, either with a retaining ring or the actual metal cups that goes into this hole and that hold it in place. It becomes totally useless otherwise. Also, you need to be careful that there's enough metal left after rust has eaten up some of this stuff. And there are ways of fixing these that machine shops have, but just make sure they're good and they have enough store material left. Some of them you can weld, some of them you can actually JB weld, some of them you're going to have to spray weld, or maybe even just do some other type of welding or stuff. The other thing that's important is to make sure that this is dead flat so you get a good sealing surface. They tend to bend the ears over the years when you over tighten them and that type of stuff, so just something to think about. Also, obviously put a new or a refurbished water pump on. Always keep a mixture of antifreeze right around 50-50 or whatever is appropriate for your thermal region, so to say. But starting here with a clean block is probably one of the most important things you can think of. And again, like I said before, I've been doing the car stuff for a long time, and I did not know that some of them had a water distribution tube sitting inside of them, making sure that the water went the right way. And I was talking to John today, and I had a 6-cylinder 50, actually I still have it, a 50 Plymouth Fastback, and I had nothing but overheating issues with that one. And come to find out that what's missing on that one was a water distribution tube, and I could never get it to run right temperature wise. Now I know why, so I figured it was important to make these videos to help somebody out there to overcome these issues without blowing stuff up. So anyway, happy Friday to you all. Love you all. Hope you're having a good day and a great weekend, and maybe we'll do some Mini Merc stuff and Chevy stuff tomorrow. So thanks for hanging the Custom Mics. See ya.